Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're diving deep into something pretty chilling. It's called Project Sundial.
Project Sundial.
It sounds like, something out of a dystopian novel.
Yeah.
But this was a real concept explored in the 1950s at the peak of the Cold War.
Right.
The U.S. was seriously considering developing this nuclear weapon. But it wasn't just any nuclear weapon. It was a weapon with unimaginable destructive power.
Unimaginable, yes.
We're talking 10 gigatons.
Wow.
Which is 670,000 times the force of the bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima.
It's really hard to even fathom that kind of power.
Yeah, the intended effect. Global annihilation.
That was the goal.
And what's even more mind-boggling is this wasn't even designed to be used in war.
Right.
It was conceived as a stationary doomsday device.
Yeah.
The ultimate deterrent.
The ultimate deterrent. To really grasp how such a terrifying concept could even be imagined, we need to step back and look at the historical context. So think about the first half of the 20th century. It was a period of just incredible technological advancement.
Yeah.
In just a few decades, the world went from horse-drawn carriages and gas lamps to airplanes and, the dawn of the atomic age.
It's amazing how quickly things changed.
It really is. And this rapid pace of change, mixed with the devastation of World War II, created this climate of fear and uncertainty.
Yeah, especially after the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945.
Right.
That was a stark demonstration of this newfound destructive power. The world was irrevocably changed.
Absolutely. The balance of global power had shifted. The very idea of security was thrown into question.
And in the aftermath of the war, the United States, now armed with the knowledge of atomic weaponry, sought to prevent the spread of this terrifying technology.
They did. In 1946, the U.S. proposed the Baruch Plan, an attempt to put all nuclear materials and technology under international control.
It sounds like a good idea on the surface. A noble effort to prevent a nuclear arms race.
It did. But unfortunately, it failed. The allure of nuclear superiority was just too strong. Nations were reluctant to give up the power that came with possessing these weapons. And the Soviet Union, especially, saw developing their own atomic bomb as essential to counterbalancing American influence.
So that's where Edward Teller enters the picture.
Yes.
A brilliant but very controversial figure.
Definitely controversial.
Teller was a physicist, heavily involved in the Manhattan Project.
He was.
And he was really the driving force behind the development of the hydrogen bomb.
He was obsessed with creating bigger and more powerful bombs.
Yeah, he was fascinated with bigger booms.
He wasn't satisfied with the power of fission devices. He believed the U.S. needed even more powerful bombs to guarantee its security. And he really pushed the boundaries of nuclear weaponry.
Teller's work led to the development of the Teller-Ulam design, which is the principle behind most modern thermonuclear weapons. And what's really crucial about this design is that it's scalable. It basically removed the upper limit on the potential yield of these bombs.
That's right.
Early on, Teller was imagining these really staggering applications for this technology.
Oh, yeah.
He even calculated the effects of a hypothetical weapon, delivered by nothing more than putting it in someone's backyard.
A backyard bomb. Hard to believe.
And his early superbomb calculations were aiming for yields exceeding 100 megatons.
It's frightening to think about.
And this relentless pursuit of bigger booms is what eventually culminated in the Sundial proposal. In the summer of 1954, Teller presented this idea to the General Advisory Committee. This was a group of scientists advising the Atomic Energy Commission.
Right.
And the reaction was, well, let's just say, shock and disbelief.
Understandably so.
Even those deeply involved in developing nuclear weapons found this concept of a 10-gigaton doomsday device absolutely abhorrent.
It was just too much.
Some felt it was like contaminating the Earth.
Right.
Others dismissed it as an advertising stunt, albeit one with terrifying implications.
A very dangerous stunt.
Yeah. Now, the Sundial proposal wasn't meant to be a traditional weapon of war. It wasn't designed to be dropped on an enemy target. Instead, Sundial was meant to be stationary. Like, imagine this monstrous weapon just sitting somewhere in America's backyard.
A terrifying thought.
The sheer scale of it was intended to make any further nuclear escalation unthinkable. The idea was that its mere existence would be enough to deter any nation from attacking the U.S. or its allies for fear of triggering global annihilation.
That was the logic, yes.
Now, to put the scale of this weapon into perspective, it's 670,000 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima.
Just to give you an idea, if we dropped a Hiroshima-sized bomb every single minute, it would take over 15 months to equal the destructive power of Sundial.
Wow, that's incredible. And the effects of a sundial detonation would have been catastrophic, far exceeding anything humanity has ever experienced.
Absolutely. Upon detonation, a fireball spanning 50 kilometers in diameter would instantly ignite everything within a 400-kilometer radius,
And a magnitude 9 earthquake would rip through the United States.
sending shockwaves across the globe.
Imagine the force of the blast propelling enormous amounts of debris and radioactive fallout into the atmosphere. This debris cloud would blanket the entire planet in a deadly shroud, blocking out the sun. Global temperatures would plummet, plunging the Earth into a nuclear winter.
It would be a global catastrophe.
Widespread fires, contaminated water sources, crop failures on a global scale, the consequences would be unimaginable. Billions dead, potentially even threatening human extinction.
It's a chilling thought.
It's a chilling thought, isn't it? To think that such a weapon was even conceived, let alone seriously considered by those in power. What's even more unsettling is that even though Project Sundial was ultimately rejected, that underlying concept, the idea of a doomsday device, it didn't just disappear.
No, it didn't. It evolved. Instead of one massive bomb capable of ending the world in a single blast, we basically created a system of smaller, yet still incredibly powerful nuclear weapons spread across the globe. These weapons became the backbone of what we call nuclear deterrence, a strategy that emerged during the Cold War and, well, it still shapes global security to this day.
Nuclear deterrence. With that rather grim acronym, MAD, mutually assured destruction, essentially hinges on this terrifying balance of terror.
Exactly. The logic is, if one nation launches a nuclear attack, the other will retaliate in kind, resulting in the annihilation of both. It creates this stalemate, a chilling standoff where neither side dares to strike first. Out of fear of provoking their own destruction, nuclear deterrence has been credited with preventing a large-scale nuclear war during the Cold War. But it's a very precarious and unsettling form of peace, to say the least.
The risks associated with this strategy are enormous. Any miscalculation, any accident, or any technical malfunction could trigger a chain reaction with global consequences. As long as these weapons exist, the possibility of their use, whether intentional or accidental, remains a haunting reality.
The legacy of Project Sundial and the nuclear arms race, it continues to cast a long shadow over the world. Sundial was never built, but it serves as a stark reminder of the dangerous paths humanity can wander down when fear and ambition go unchecked. The world has changed drastically since the 1950s, but the threat of nuclear war remains a very real danger.
New players have emerged on the global stage and old rivalries have rekindled, adding to the complexity of the global security landscape. The United States and Russia, despite the end of the Cold War, still possess vast nuclear arsenals, and both countries continue to invest heavily in modernizing their weapons.
And we can't forget about China. They are rapidly expanding their nuclear capabilities, making the situation even more volatile.
And then there are the regional powers, like India, Pakistan, and North Korea, who are also developing and testing nuclear weapons. These developments add further layers of uncertainty and risk to an already precarious situation. In this multipolar world, the potential for miscalculation and escalation is greater than ever before.
The lines of communication are less clear, and the stakes are arguably even higher. The global nuclear arsenal may be smaller than it was during the Cold War, but it's arguably more dangerous. The weapons are more sophisticated, and the potential for their use in a regional conflict is a growing concern.
And then there's the threat of nuclear terrorism. Non-state actors gaining access to nuclear materials or technology. This would add a whole new dimension of complexity and danger to the global security landscape. It's against this backdrop that we must consider the legacy of Project Sundial. It reminds us that even in the darkest moments of the Cold War, there were those who recognized the ultimate folly of pursuing weapons of such immense destructive power.
It's a story that challenges us to examine our own assumptions about security and the role of nuclear weapons in the modern world. The story of Project Sundial isn't just a relic of the past. It's a story that is still being written today. It demands our attention, our critical thinking, and perhaps most importantly, our collective action. It's a story that raises some really profound questions about scientific responsibility, the limits of human ambition. You know, Edward Teller, the driving force behind Sundial, he was such a complex and controversial figure.
He was brilliant, undeniably. But his unwavering belief in the need for, well, ever larger nuclear weapons is unsettling, to say the least.
It is.
Teller argued that these weapons were essential to deter the Soviet Union, to ensure America's safety.
Right.
But his critics saw him as, well, reckless and dangerous. They believed that he was too willing to risk the fate of humanity, all in the name of national security.
It was a gamble, for sure.
It was a gamble. And this debate over the morality and the strategic value of nuclear weapons, it continues to this day.
It does. Some people, especially those connected to, military strategy and national defense, they believe that these weapons are an essential deterrent. They argue that they've prevented a major war between superpowers for over 70 years.
Right.
But then there are those who argue that nuclear weapons are inherently immoral and dangerous. Their very existence poses an unacceptable risk to humanity.
And Project Sundial, as unsettling as it is, reminds us that these aren't just, abstract philosophical debates.
Yeah.
These are matters of life and death. They are issues that affect the security and well-being of every single person on this planet.
The fact that a weapon like Sundial was even conceived, let alone considered, really forces us to confront that reality.
Yeah, it does. The cancellation of Project Sundial, you could see it as a victory for common sense and human decency.
Yeah.
It showed that even during the Cold War, with all that paranoia and fear, there were people who recognized the danger and the ultimate folly of pursuing weapons of such immense destructive power.
Absolutely. But it's important to remember that the cancellation of Sundial, it's just one chapter in a much larger story, a story that's still unfolding. The threat of nuclear annihilation hasn't disappeared. It's evolved, become more complex, and arguably more insidious.
Yeah. The challenges we face today, they might be different for those of the Cold War, but the stakes are just as high.
Absolutely.
And the need for vigilance, for dialogue, for creative solutions, it's never been greater. As we reflect on the legacy of Project Sundial and all that it represents, it's vital that we remember those lessons of the past. Let them guide us as we navigate the complexities of the present and the uncertainties of the future. And let's also look to the future with a renewed sense of hope and a commitment to ensuring a safe and secure world for everyone. The choices we make today, they will shape the world of tomorrow. We have a responsibility to choose wisely. And that concludes our deep dive into Project Sundial. We hope this exploration has given you a better understanding of this chilling chapter in human history and the complex questions it continues to raise about our world today.